Hi everyone, Vacha here from Recording Studio 9 and thanks for joining me again for another great recording and mixing tip. Today what we're looking at is what it was called in the old days was track freeze. And what it meant is that back in the old days computers weren't that powerful, so if you had a lot of plugins per track or on your auxiliary buses to save up a lot of CPU, you would freeze the track. All it meant is that it re-recorded the track with the effects onto a new track or on itself. This way, you were able to switch off or turn off, disable your plugins, but the new track will have all of those printed, ready for you, more CPU power to actually apply to different tracks. Now that computers are much more powerful, that's not that necessary anymore. Even my really old laptop that you are looking at on the screen can handle multiple plugins without any issues. So why would you use it? Well, I'm going to demonstrate in Studio One version 4 Prime Edition. This is also available in version 3, but I've got version 4 Prime Edition, which is a free DAW, and utilize that freeze, or in this case, what is called Mixdown track, to create auxiliary buses. At the same time, relieve some CPU power for more tracks. In the past, I've demonstrated how you can use an effects channel as an auxiliary bus. That's by just right-clicking and adding an effects channel. Instead of calling it effects, call it bus. And then just move it a bit higher. Now, let's say if you want to send all of these drums into a bus, we can send that. Why don't we just select all of it, and then we can select its output into a bus. So now all of these channels will be going into the effects, and the effects is going to the main. So let's have a listen to the drums. Now we can control that with this one volume. Let's assume we actually did some balancing. And so on. So now we have a bus where here we can add effects. Let's say we're going to add a compressor. By the way, if you are using Studio One Prime Edition, the free DAW, and you're wondering how I actually have the compressor, there are Studio One add-on features, and I believe they are $9.95. You can purchase it, and you do get the compressor, as well as, let's browse, you get the compressor, you get gate, you get limiter, you also get the Pro EQ, and then you get room reverb. So very, very handy. For $9.95, you get all of that. So anyway, that's beside this demonstration. I'll just mention it. So now we have a compressor. Let's just, instead of having multiple compressors on each channels, we can simply balance it, and now we can actually use the one compressor to do the work, and so on. But sometimes that is not fully desired, because if we want to add reverb into this drum bus, there is no send option for the effects in the free version. So we cannot send this bus output to another effect to add reverb to our drums or anything else, because this could be maybe the guitars. Maybe we want to add reverb to the guitars. So how do we do it? That's where Mixdown selection will come in very handy. So what is Mixdown and how do we use it? Well, first, let's get rid of this. Okay, now make sure that all go to main. And here, let's look at our tracks. I'm just gonna remove the mixer. These are all my drum tracks. Okay, let's assume that I've all balanced it all out. That's how I want it. They're nice and clean. The balancing is good. I don't have any other effects in there. But if I wanted to, sure, I could add it. Let's say I'm going to add to the room mics some EQ, maybe a low pass, just sort of to get... so the room mics don't have any rumbles and things like that. Same with the overheads. I can just simply copy that as well there. That's all good. This is not a good example. I'm just showing you what you can do. Those are the effects I have on. Now, all I got to do is select all the clips in those tracks that I want. They don't have to be in that order, because if I don't want to process the overheads or the floor toms as a mixed bus selection, you can leave them out. But in this example, I'm just selecting the whole lot. And now I can just go into Event and select Mixdown Selection. This, what basically it did, it mixed all of the clips and the tracks that I've selected into one stereo bus. And then muted all the clips. And now I could call this drums bus. So let's have a listen. So now I have a drums bus. Now I have option to insert plugins as well as send to reverb. That's fine. So let's add a compressor again. Okay, let's increase the input gain because my balance is not that well. So we've got enough signal coming in. And just bring down the threshold. Okay, so now I have a compressor on my drums bus. Then of course I can certainly add another effects again very quickly. Mix reverb. Now I have effects on my drums. So now, not only I saved a lot of CPU power by disabling these now, because they have been processed and are included in this clip here. So you don't need those plugins anymore. You can just turn them off. And now I have one stereo bus that I can actually process with plugins like compressor, an EQ or saturation, anything else you want to put in there. And at the same time, it allows us to actually send to effects channels. And if in the future I find out that, oh, my kick was a bit too high, well, that's not a problem because you still have all of that information. And all you got to do is come back, turn it down. And it's the same option again. You select all of them, making sure they are unmuted and selected. All good. Now this time, I'll say I'm just going to bring down the kicks and the sub just to make it really dramatic. Bring down the room mics and the snare top a bit higher. Okay, so that's what I wanted to do. Again, same thing. I can go to Event and Mixdown Selection. Now I have a new one, but this time, of course, the kick drum will be less and overhead will be less. And you can tell that from the waveform that it does look different. And then, of course, you can mute this one and listen to. It's that one. Okay, it's called Mixdown too. And you can do the same thing. Well, let's assume that we are quite happy with the first one that we did. We're just going to mute that one. And now we've got all these tracks that we sort of no longer need to use it. And it's just going to take a lot of space. Well, what we can do is go here and say, see that sort of dot on each of the tracks? We can click and they can disappear off our mixer. And now, we probably don't need, let's say we didn't need this one either. And now we have one, which is our drums bus. And there we go. So that's cleared up all of that clutter of tracks, and they're all here. And that's all we need to work with. Next, we can work on the bass guitar and the other guitars, the keyboards, vocals, and everything else, and so on. So this way, you are minimizing and removing all of the clutter from your timeline and making it easy to work with. And if you ever need to go back and change something in the mix because your final result Mixdown didn't sound as good as you wanted to, you still have all of those tracks, all of that recorded tracks still available, and we can bring it out again. Well, I hope this was helpful. If it was, make sure you give me the thumbs up or the thumbs down. If you didn't like it, that's okay. Please don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell again so that you get notified as soon as I upload my next video, tips and tricks on recording music and production. Until next time, as always, thanks for watching and have a great time making music. Cheerio, guys.